What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Scouting Combine here on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Alf and David are going to have the post-camp report coming up at 3:20 p.m. later today. But today, first, we want to talk about the Miami Dolphins' brand new offense. Can Tua be efficient in this offense? Is he going to be comparable to Jimmy G? And a little bit of EPA as well. Today, I bring on a couple good friends of mine from PFF and from the Take the Points podcast. We have Ted, Seth, and Arjun Menon here. Ted, how are we doing today?
Good. Yeah. Thanks so much for having us on. I'm really excited to talk about the Dolphins today.
Of course. Arjun, how you doing, my guy?
Doing good. Back on Michigan's campus for the first time in a couple of months, so excited to be back in the college life for a couple of days, and also talk football while I'm at it.
Of course, man. Now, before we get started off, we have three very different type of quarterbacks for the teams to root for. Me, of course, Miami Dolphins fan. We have Tua Tagovailoa. Tej, big fan of Matthew Stafford, who finally won a Super Bowl with the Los Angeles Rams. But you have Jared Goff, man. How are you feeling as a Lions fan so far?
I feel pretty good about like the overall future of the Lions, but this season specifically, I still don't think that they're going to be that good of a team. Like you mentioned with Jared Goff, like his limitations, with kind of the things that he does with, his pocket presence not being that good and him not being able to do well when like safeties rotate or the defense changes post snap will hold the Lions offense back this year. But I think, neck down, Jared Goff is a pretty good NFL quarterback. It's just a lot of the mental stuff that he doesn't excel at. So that's why I kind of see them, winning about like 5 to 6 games, like what the betting markets kind of think of them too.
Of course, Arjun, you have quite possibly one of the better quarterbacks out of the three of us and a potential MVP candidate by Vegas. How are you guys feeling about Justin Herbert and the Chargers this year?
Yeah, I mean, I love what the Chargers did in the offseason, and I fully believe Justin Herbert is an elite quarterback in this league. I thought from his rookie year to his second year, he took a massive step forward in his development, even playing under a completely new coaching staff with a brand new playbook, which the Saints playbook is one of the hardest playbooks in terms of its complexity in the NFL. So I thought he did a very good job of limiting mistakes. And even though he was inconsistent here and there, I thought he showed up when he needed to in primetime games and in the fourth quarter. And really excited to see him take another step forward in this offense with all the continuity around him.
So I guess arguably, between the three of us, the NFL has changed a lot. It's become a very pass-happy league. And I was having a couple conversations with some people in the league, and we're talking about how the league has moved from running the ball, taking time off the clock to just scoring as much as possible. And one quote which really stuck with me was that, running the ball to set up the pass is an age-old adage where your father and grandfather told you how to play football. Now, we know running the ball is still important in NFL games. I mean, the Patriots completely hammered the Bills last season in one of the regular season games towards December on their march to the playoffs. But I wanted to ask you two this question, and Arjun, we'll start off with you. Does running the football really set up the pass, in your opinion?
Yeah, so I think analytically, like the answer is no. And if you look at just like straight up run, like does running set up play action? Because play action is, basically a run play where you don't hand off the ball. The answer is no again. But I also think, thinking about it a lot this summer, there is some nuance to the discussion because if you are a very good running team, you could face defenses that add another man in the box more than the league average or more than your season average. So if you're able to run the ball effectively, then defenses are going to try and key in on that, or at least defenses that don't prioritize the right thing. So if you can run the ball at like a top 5, top 6 level and force defenses to add a 7th or 8th guy in the box, that will help the pass game. But the problem is you don't want to run the ball too much because running is less efficient than passing. So I think it's kind of like a circular discussion because everything is connected to one another. But in a simple answer, I think the answer is no, because first of all, the data doesn't back it up, and also you don't really want to be running as much as you pass.
So, Tej, look, from 2015 to 2020, just passing the ball on first down has averaged 7.6 yards per attempt, while running the ball just gained 4.3 yards per attempt. But yet, teams still run the ball on first down 55% of the time. Why?
Yeah, so this is because of a couple of things. So the main thing is something that Eric Eager at PFF has studied before is a perfectly blocked run where all the offensive linemen or tight ends that are blocking on that play end up getting a positive grade assigned to them from PFF for that play is actually more efficient than a perfectly blocked pass. So when a offensive play caller is thinking of how the play that they're about to call is going to go, they probably drew up the play themselves. So they're in their mind, they're thinking that it's going to be executed exactly how they think it's going to be executed. So they think of it as a perfectly blocked run. But then the second that one of the offensive linemen messes up on their blocks and doesn't get a positive grade for that play, the run play becomes much less efficient than if a pass play was called in that situation. So I think what it is that and these perfectly blocked runs only happen around 30% of the time. So like a play caller just has kind of like a bias that they think the play will go how they envision it, and so they're calling more runs than they should, when in reality only 30% of the plays actually go how they're supposed to go.
So, look, even the most run-heavy teams like the 49ers and the Tennessee Titans last year had a higher YPA on first down compared to running the ball. The 49ers had an 8.9 YPA on passing the ball on first down and just 4.4 yards running the ball on first down, while the Titans had a 7.2 on first down and a 4.2 running while on first down. Now, I get the point and discussion here, but do you guys think that this has changed as a result of too high coverages or just defenses putting a lot of rotating coverages, post snap?
Yeah, I think with what we just saw like 2014 through 2019 when the league was predominantly single high cover three and there was usually an extra man in the box. That's what kind of like the Shanahan and the McVay offenses were designed to beat, with the wide zone schemes and the heavy play action boots and all that stuff. And kind of like the vertical routes that are taking advantage of the single high safety. But like what Arjun mentioned in his first answer with the league being cyclical, like as there's more too high structures that pop up and we're seeing lighter boxes, like how the Chiefs and the Bills and all these teams saw very light boxes last year. Being able to run the ball again is going to start to gain in importance. It's probably at its lowest importance these past couple of years. But if every team is trying to go lighter on defense and focusing on stopping the pass, then the run game is going to come back and be. It might not pass how important the passing game is, but it'll definitely be more important than it has been these past couple of years.
So look, Arjun, running the ball it keeps the defense honest. And when I did my research, it's really noted on second and third down. So the YPA on these rush attempts increases from 4.4 on second down and 4.5 on third down. Now, as marginal of an increase as that is, it is a big ROI for these teams, especially when they're trying to move the chains. Now, the success rate of gaining 5 or more yards goes up to 50% on second down. It jumps to 53% on third down. So they technically, if you think about it, if a team, gets at least 5 yards per average, either passing or running on first or second down, they're going to be successful, moving the change and potentially getting a touchdown. In your sense, are second and third downs the most crucial downs to run the ball, or is it still pass dominant?
I think that's a good question. Like my big thing is if you're stuck with a second and 10, you shouldn't be running the ball all that often. Like I think second and 10 runs are probably they could be efficient. I haven't looked at the specific numbers, but second and 10 runs will eventually put you in third down more often than not. Like it's pretty tough to gain a first down on rush for 11 plus yard or 10 plus yards on 2nd and 10. So I mean, you're pretty much, if you run on 2nd and 10, you're pretty much guaranteeing that you're going to be in a 3rd down situation, and it's just whether or not it's a tougher 3rd down situation like 3rd and long or 3rd and short. So I think if anything, 3rd and short runs are probably the most important of any down and run that you want to have, because 3rd and short will eventually lead to 4th and short. So like you obviously want to convert on 3rd downs as much as possible. Heading to 4th downs just increases the variance that your offense can bring to the table. But yeah, like I'm not the biggest fan of 2nd down runs, especially when it's 2nd and long. And if you're in that situation, like a 3rd and 1, a 3rd and 2, that's where you definitely want to have a type of dominant offensive line or a big power running back that can get you those extra yards after contact, because I think that's where it really matters.
So to your point, Arjun and Tej, look, the most successful offenses in the NFL have potent passing attacks and have the most success by passing the ball on first down and converting it 5+ yards or past the sticks. And case in point, Buffalo, San Francisco, Green Bay, Cincinnati, and the Rams all have 8 or more yards per attempt passing, coupled with it being over a 54% success rate. Is running the ball still important for these types of teams?
Yes, because running the ball is still positively correlated with, winning or offensive EPA. So you do still need to have, a rushing attack to have like an efficient offense in today's NFL. Like if you have, an alien quarterback like the Patrick Mahomes or the Josh Allen or the Justin Herberts of the world, then they are so good that it almost doesn't matter that your run game can take advantage of that. But if you just have an above average quarterback, you still would like to see them having a run game to rely on. Like if you look at Russell Wilson, for example, as he transitions from Seattle to Denver, the let Russ cook movement did work out for the Seahawks, right? Like Russell Wilson's game isn't built for passing, all the time, and the defense not respecting the run. He does a lot better when the defense is creeping up more and he can take more of his deep balls and stuff like that. So you still see like some of these quarterbacks, liking to have a run game that they can rely on that can help them, just like take more deep shots in advantageous situations, or put an extra defender in the box that really increases their EPA per pass and different stuff like that.
So, case in point, you saying that running the ball is still important for these teams. When I take a look at these teams and overall the NFL, just comparing first down to 2nd and 3rd down, each team's YPA on running the ball still increases on the 2nd and 3rd down, because I think it comes back to the situation for the offensive play caller and the defensive play caller. If you're in a 2nd and 6 or 3rd and short, your playbook opens up vastly. You can run the ball, you can do play action, you can do bootlegs, you can do a lot of stuff. So I think that's primarily one of the reasons why YPA is higher for running the ball. And to be honest, running the ball on 2nd and 3rd down leads to a better success rate, a 51% success rate, compared to passing the ball, which is a 42% success rate. So, and that's something that kind of blew me away, because in such a pass-dominant league, you would expect, throwing the ball will lead you to more success in 2nd and 3rd down. Now, look, as the NFL continues its passing revolution, gone are the days of running the ball and setting up the pass, but defensives have adjusted to that, and it's too high. It's too high. Safety sells almost 50% of the time. So still, again, running the ball is vastly important. As we transition this away, we have to talk quarterbacks. All right, 2019 Jimmy G was probably, in my opinion, one of the most efficient quarterbacks play I have seen. Based on the statistical analysis you guys, have seen, just comparing 2019 Jimmy G to other efficient quarterbacks, would you say he's top tier or is he middle of the pack?
He's a middle of a pack quarterback. Like there's a reason no one's traded for him yet, even with his injury. the Niners had a chance to get a second round pick for him, and I thought that would have been enough to deal him away. But at the end of the day, like he's what we call a Kirk. Like he's a quarterback that you can't really win with unless you have like a roster set up for the Super Bowl where you don't have many injuries, or you have an elite defense and you have a great offensive line and you have weapons that can do well after the catch. Like it takes a lot for a team with a Jimmy G type quarterback to have success over the course of a season and in the playoffs. Because like let's be real, in the playoffs, what did the Niners do? They beat the Cowboys like by like single digits. They barely like they squeaked out a win versus the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs is just a priv because you don't like he's always losing somehow, and he always loses versus the Niners. And then I mean they lost versus the Rams because Jimmy couldn't lead them down for the final couple of drives. So it's tough to win with a Jimmy G type quarterback, and that's why the Niners traded up to number 3 to get a Trey Lance type quarterback, because he has the upside, the physical tools to be that of like a Josh Allen or Justin Herbert. But yeah, it's pretty tough to win with Jimmy.
So the thing is, Garoppolo being out in San Francisco is pretty evident, but I guess you could say other things can be a little bit chaotic. To me, it seems like Garoppolo is a product of his, offensive play caller and designer, Kyle Shanahan. And, the team that trades for him will only get Jimmy G. And, the blueprint for success with Jimmy G is extremely clear. And it's just that type of offense that'll work for him. And that's, interlocked in his DNA. There's a reason why, he wasn't the starter for the New England Patriots, even after, and the reason why he was traded as well. Now, there's a lot of Shanahan-inspired systems right now, specifically the Miami Dolphins as a whole. Is Tua that Jimmy G type of quarterback, or is there more with Tua?
Yeah, so I do think, and like I mean this as a compliment when I say it, Tua could be like Jimmy G in this offense in 2022. And that like I think a lot of people will take that as an insult because like, oh, like you're comparing it to like an average quarterback. But when you have an average quarterback and you put them in a situation where, in Jimmy G's situation, it was, like you mentioned, like top offensive mind, very good offensive line, and then one of the top 3 tight ends of the league, and then like a good mix of wide receivers throughout his time there. For Tua, it would be a much more improved offensive line, and then on top of that, 2 of the fastest receivers in the league, probably the fastest receiver duo ever in NFL history. So if Tua plays at an average level, you could see him ranking like top 12 in efficiency metrics like EPA per play this season, because an average quarterback at that level with weapons and a good play calling could rank that highly, while there's other average quarterbacks like a Ryan Tannehill or a Mac Jones that are in worse situations that are going to rank lower than their play level because of the supporting cast and play callers that they have.
So Arjun, let's talk a little bit about this tweet right here from Warren Sharp. Number 1 in EPA on deep passes, success rate and completion percentage, and YPA. However, there's a but to it. Can you explain this to us?
I don't. Where's the but again?
Can you see the screen?
I can see the screen. I just like below these stats. Did Warren mention something else?
No, it just mentions one of the reasons as it being Mike McDaniel.
Okay.
But a lot of people, especially Twitter discourse, have said that it's due to just his limited deep ball completions. That's where the but lines in. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, I do agree. And so this is interesting. So when I was preparing for this, like I was looking at some splits between the Niners and Tua from last year, and like here's one of the things I think NFL Twitter doesn't do a great job of like breaking down. So I think efficiency on a per play basis, like if you use EPA per attempt or yards per attempt that Warren is using, it's fine, right? Like that's a fine way to measure who's the best at a certain thing. However, I don't think if you just use per play stats for such a nuanced stat like deep passing efficiency, it doesn't encapsulate how good a player is at that actual thing. And why do I say that? Because Tua ranked 30th in deep ball passing attempts. If he was a good quarterback on deep passes, he would be throwing the ball deep much more, right? But he threw the ball deep 30 times or 29 pass attempts deep in 13 games, right? Like some of the top quarterbacks in the league: Tom Brady 82, Josh Allen 77, Russell Wilson 75, Rodgers and Mahomes 69, Burrow 68, Herbert 64. Like all of these top quarterbacks have like above 60 passing attempts deep, and Tua, he's only thrown the ball deep 29 times in 2021. So while his per play stats may look fine, it's probably because he hasn't seen that type of larger sample size, which could lead to more outcomes like some of these other quarterbacks had. And so even though his efficiency is great, if he increases some of his workload, we don't know how his efficiency will respond. It could stay the same, but I would bet that it would probably go down with more attempts.
So it's looking like, Tej, and you and I have spoken about this a little bit in camp, and the practice reports have come out that he's become more aggressive passing the ball deep as well. We saw it on that Blazer concept, and we'll put it back on here as well. Last season, and this came from Tua himself and the offense. The offense was designed for one player only, but we weren't given that name of one player, and he was a receiver. When that receiver wasn't open, everything was pretty much not available. You couple in the offensive line play for the Dolphins, it was probably the worst in the league. We are going to see a bigger work sample size for Tua Tagovailoa, especially in the deep passing game. He has Jalen Waddle, he has Tyreek Hill, and Cedric Wilson, who can operate from the slide, and he can also be a deep threat. You have great pass-catching running backs in Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert as well. When you look at, just the efficiency perspective from 2021, does it tell the whole story of Tua Tagovailoa as a quarterback?
Yeah, a lot of the things you laid out makes it not tell the whole story. Like you mentioned, like having the worst offensive line in the league last year limited a lot of the things that the Dolphins could do on offense. And I always thought it was weird that, because of how bad that offensive line was, the offense had to be engineered just for short passes only because, they couldn't hold up for more than 2.5 seconds that, usually like the threshold you need to have a lot of like plays go over 30 or 40 yards in the air, because the receivers wouldn't be able to run those routes. So then Tua ended up getting a lot of hate for only throwing short passes when like the whole offense was engineered for him to do that because of how bad the offensive line was. So yeah, there's always, there's always perspective on any efficiency metric like EPA per play, where you have to take into account situation and adjust for that when you talk about it. And so like I mentioned earlier, like if the offensive line can improve, and like the Blazer concept we saw from camp that went pretty viral on Twitter, he that was like an Alabama pocket for him, right? It felt like he was back at college there, and Alabama's offensive line being so good when he was there was huge for him, and I think like the things that he wants to do on offense. So if the Dolphins can get closer to that and like make him feel more comfortable, then we definitely could see Tua play pretty well this year in the Dolphins offense.
Now, we go on to talk about this brand new Miami Dolphins offense, but you can't say it's brand new. It stems from the Shanahan concept, stands from Bill Walsh's 80s and 90s 49ers. Mike Shanahan takes it with the now defunct Washington Redskins, now the Washington Commanders. His son, Kyle Shanahan, builds upon him. Then his friends, Sean McVay, Mike McDaniel, Kevin O'Connell, they bring their own styles over to him as well. And, when I was delving a little bit deep into the playbook, Arjun, and I'll bring it up here, wanted to highlight just a basic run concept that Mike McDaniel helped engineer in the run game since he was the run game coordinator. Now it's called the Zero concept, strong side, outside zone concept. Right here, it details exactly what the offensive line has to do. They move in unison in movement vertically. We can see here, in this play, it basically tells us what is going to happen. Of course, Jimmy G is under there, and it is a toss. Now, 2019 to 2021 for the 49ers, they ran a lot of toss plays, but the biggest factor which helped them out was that they had wide receivers, tight ends, and fullbacks blocking most of the time. And I think that's extremely important for a Shanahan style of offense, as your playmakers have to be really good in blocking well to make sure your running backs and everybody else, um, can get yards. Now, throughout the season, teams basically caught on. And, this concept is designed to give a player like Debo Samuel, like Raheem Mostert, better angles to handle linebackers that align wider to the edge side or over across the offensive lineman. Now, defenses adjusted, as always they do in the NFL, but Mike McDaniel and Shanahan, they've adapted so well to every single defense that they have faced is that they came up with a better solution. Instead of having, an extra wide receiver, on the field, they bring in two tight ends. They eliminated 21 personnel, made it into 22 personnel, and that's what led them to get into the playoffs much more last season. The thing is, the Dolphins kind of tried something like that similarly, but with 12 personnel. They ran more 12 personnel last year. And Miami didn't have a zone blocking scheme. You would think with an RPO style of offense, they would run a lot of zone blocking concept. Contrary to belief, it was a lot of man blocking. So when I take a look at just how the offensive line was blocking, they could never get to the second level. And when you look at Miles Gaskin's charts and EPA, he barely ever got off the first or second tackler and defender just because his blocking was not up to par. With this new offense, the one where Mike McDaniel brings from the Shanahan system, is this going to help the run game overall?
Yeah, I mean, so the thing with, I think I even commented on your thread about this. Like, I think it'd be so cool to run Zoro with Teron Armstead as the guy in motion, and like that would just be really fun to see, because both of them are profiled so well to each other athletically that Armstead could go out and get that second level block. And I know you threaded one of my tweets from in that thread, and like, yeah, I mean the Dolphins had the second lowest yards after contact per attempt, so it wasn't even that like their offensive line was bad. It was like their running backs just had no ability to break tackles and get past the second level. And that's kind of why they go out and get Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, and Sony Michel, in hopes of being able to do that. And I do think they marginally improved their offensive line. I would say their offensive line last year was like bottom 3. Now I still think it's below average just because I think you had 3 weak links on that offense, which in Eichenberg, Robert Hunt, and Austin Johnson.
I don't know about Robert Hunt being a weak link. He was actually one of the better guards his rookie season and last year as well. But you could argue it was marred by the play around him overall.
Yeah,
and
that's fair.
Yeah, and there have been some discussions coming outside where he could potentially play right tackle, in this scheme. When the Dolphins played the 49ers in 2019, he was one of their right tackles as well. And your first impression is a lasting impression. And one of our podcasters from 3 Yards Per Carry, Chris Kaufman, mentioned it. Mike McDaniel was, with the 49ers at that time, and he saw how that offensive line absolutely obliterated, the 49ers defense in 2020. And honestly, it was unlike something I have seen before. Now, Tej, as we move on from the run game to the passing game, how does this benefit to a style of game?
Yeah, I think so. So Tua last season I have a metric that I built when I was at PFF called accuracy rate over expected, which basically accounted for, how deep the pass was, how open the receiver was, what kind of defense, was being played, all of that stuff, and created it, how with the percent chance that that pass would be charted as accurate by the PFF game charters. And then, if the pass was accurate, then it would be positive accuracy rate over expected, then vice versa for negative. So last season, Tua was plus 1.8 accuracy rate over expected. So he was 1.8% better at, making accurate passes compared to what the league would be expected for. So the Kyle Shanahan offense in the pass game relies a lot on in-breakers, right? In-breakers to Deebo Samuel, in-breakers to George Kittle. So I see a lot of in-breakers happening with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill this year. And since Tua has shown to be above accurate in accuracy, that's one of the things that leads to very big yards after catch opportunities, is if the pass is hitting them in stride. So I think the passing game is going to look like, where it's a lot of 5 to 10 yard in-breaker routes, and Tua will be able to throw an accurate pass most of the time. And then either Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle will be able to use their speed to get, a couple extra yards over what, a receiver that's not as fast as them would be able to get in that situation.
Now, before we get into the Blazer concept, just wanted to shout out our sponsor, Prize Picks. If you guys have not registered for Prize Picks yet, make sure you use the promo code 5. Again, that's 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and get 100% matching deposit on your whatever you put, whatever you bet as well. Now, as we get on to this Blazer concept, Tej, I wanted to highlight it broke the internet. All right, it broke NFL Twitter. I think almost everybody was surprised over how this play was done, and I'll go ahead and share it for almost everybody to view as well. Now, this concept is called the Blazer concept, and I'll explain it to Tej and Arjun in a little bit. Now, if you go on NFL Twitter and NFL Twitter's discourse itself, and the video will play again, and as Arjun, mentioned, Tua didn't throw the ball deep a lot, but in practice he is, and it could be as a result of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle just being his primary pass catching weapons overall. But I mean, this ball, Arjun can't deny it was a pretty good ball. Good ball, right?
Good ball.
Pretty good ball. And Tej, good? Not good?
No, it was great. It was a great pass.
It was a great pass, and we'll go ahead and talk about the Blazer concept a little bit. Now, this comes from 21 personnel. You have 2 running backs, either a running back or a fullback, and a tight end in line as well. It's basically a play action pass, and the tweet describes it itself. Where you see Tyreek Hill running, just blowing by, I believe it was Noah Igbenogany, one of our number 4 and number 5 corners on the depth chart. He comes into motion, and the play actually here is flipped since Tua is a lefty. He motions all the way to I believe this is the play side. It's a little bit different in the NFL. It's to the play side, and he basically just has to run 20 yards as well. Now, Tua has to decide, and he basically has to read the safety. In this case, it is Jevon Holland, and it's a video I found last year preseason, and the 49ers ran it against the Las Vegas Raiders last week 3 last preseason. Here, and you can see it, Trey Lance is basically looking over the safety. Now, the safety basically doubles what would be Tyreek Hill running the Blazer route, just running up the field, trying to break up those 2 safeties. Now, the quarterback has 2 decisions. Either he takes the crosser, which Jalen Waddle ran, or the Blazer route, which Tyreek Hill is blowing by Noah Igbenogany. Now, he takes Tyreek Hill, of course. And Jevon Holland was put into a little bit of a bind. Does he take Jalen Waddle in a crosser, or does he stick with Tyreek Hill to not allow a touchdown? He sticks with Jalen Waddle, and in turn, it turns into a touchdown. With these types of play call concepts, Tej, how beneficial is this for Tua Tagovailoa and the offense overall?
Yeah, I think, kind of like Tua's history with the Dolphins, the offense necessarily hasn't been specifically suited for his skill set. It's the first season that he was there, Ryan Fitzpatrick was mixing in, and they were they had a co-offensive coordinator set up, if I remember
Yep.
correctly.
And
And then
there was a third one as well, but not a lot of people talk about it.
yeah, so that's like not good continuity. That's too many opinions on play calling. Last year, it was what we mentioned with the offensive line really limited a lot of the things that they wanted to do. So I think getting Mike McDaniel in there to run concepts like the Blazer concept or things that he knows Tua can execute well, and like that's why this training camp period is so important for the Dolphins is figuring it out. Which Shanahan concepts Tua can run well and feels comfortable with could be really beneficial to the Dolphins, offensive outlook. And Mike McDaniel, has by all accounts has seemed like he's been good at adjustments, like you mentioned earlier. He seems to be a good offensive mind, and he also seems to be someone that like a lot of players like as like a person. He's very into pop culture, and you don't see that with a lot of the older coaches in the league. So I think like the combination of all of that stuff could be very helpful for the Dolphins offense and kind of Tua as a whole. And like the Shanahan concepts haven't seen receivers quite like Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Debo Samuel is bigger than both those guys, and a lot of his center of gravity is lower in his body. The Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill are more burners, so you could mix in a lot of like cool things that the Shanahan concept is doing, but also like new things because of the different types of wide receivers that Mike McDaniel has to work with.
Arjun, just personnel wise, it's looking like they'll run more so what the 49ers did in 2019 and 2020 with 21 personnel compared to 12 personnel than what the Dolphins have run. How does this basically, how does this keep the defense on their feet compared to last season?
Yeah, so one of the things I think me and Tage like talked about is like not only like 12 personnel, I guess 21 works here also, but like if you run this type of like heavier personnel based offense, that will also potentially increase the number of men in the box that the defenses have to play because you have to account for that. You have to account for like a heavier personnel and not only like an extra man in the box. I mean, teams might be more prone to running base packages or nickel packages instead of dime to try and account for this heavier personnel that the offense is running. But like in terms of the Dolphins, I think like one important thing that the Shanahan system does very well is it takes advantage of the middle of the field because like that's where a lot of those in breaking routes are. So I was doing some research and like the Niners threw the ball over the middle of the field at the second most in the NFL last year. The the Dolphins were like 11th, I believe, and one interesting thing I found was like the Dolphins ranked 29th in EPA throwing over the middle. The Niners ranked 18th, and the problem for me that I have with like Tua is he's not a very good decision maker. Like he had the third highest turnover worthy play rate in the NFL, and he's only behind Mike Glennon and Taysom Hill, who like really aren't starting quarterbacks. So technically, he ranked first in turnover worthy play rate, and while throwing the ball over the middle is the most efficient place to pass because of all of the tight windows and the people surrounding the middle of the field that the defense has put in those positions. It's also one of the most dangerous places to pass. So I'm a little bit worried about his decision making when throwing over the middle and making some of those tough decisions like throwing to his first read or second read. And I know I kind of got off track from the personnel thing, but
It's all good.
like but that's also like if you're running a heavier personnel, you're probably not going to be you're also probably going to be taking some of those more deeper developing shots down the field because you'll have like if you're running 21, you'll have like an extra fullback who will most likely act as an extra blocker if I'm not wrong. So
Right.
that's kind of like my thinking of this situation.
So just on the move, Tua Tagovailoa was a little bit better, and even to his Alabama days when he was using bootlegs and rollouts as well, he was really efficient, really squared his body well before he had that devastating injury. Now, with this system, there's a lot of play action passing concepts. There's a lot of rollouts, a lot of bootlegs as well, especially in 21 personnel. But Arjun, can you, you made this chart a little bit earlier today, and I saw it, and I wanted to ask you, what does this metric basically mean, and what does it mean to Tua Tagovailoa?
Yeah, so I mean the metric's pretty straightforward. The x-axis is saying when the quarterback is outside the pocket, how well does he perform using EPA, and the y-axis is how well does he perform from inside the pocket. So, very few quarterbacks do well outside of the pocket. Like the league average is negative when you're throwing from outside the pocket, but most quarterbacks do well from inside the pocket um, because they kind of have a better idea of like what's going on. It's less chaotic and honestly, like sometimes throwing from outside the pocket not only is reliant on a quarterback's mobility, but a receiver's ability to get open, like in these type of scramble drill situations. I actually think a better graph that I posted that is relevant to Tua is how well he performs when throwing to his first read versus his second read. So this is a graph I posted a couple days ago, and so basically Tua is like a league average quarterback throwing to his first read in terms of EPA, but he's like a pretty bad quarterback when he's forced to throw past his first read, and and this is something that Jimmy had to do a lot of in San Francisco because he's not only looking at the first in breaking route, he's looking at the backside dig as well, coming from what stems from play action. And Jimmy didn't throw to his first read all that often. Like if you look at his dot size in the graph, he's not really throwing to his first read as at a higher at a rate as high as some of the other top quarterbacks in the league. So if Tua is being forced to make some of these decisions post snap and look past his first read like he was doing last year, I don't know how well he's going to succeed in this offense. Now, obviously having Tyreek Hill and Cedric Wilson will help in that regard, but yeah, it's a little bit of projection on Dolphins fans and NFL fans in general, projecting that Tua will have like instant success with this new receiving with these new receiving weapons, when I think he does have to take another step forward in his development and making some of these post-snap reads.
Right, and there was some criticism from Tua Tagovailoa last season about his post-snaps reads and just sticking to his first read, and I detailed it a little bit. And Tua even said himself, the offense was basically built for one person, one of the wide receivers, and we don't know who that is, but I think most of us can basically assume when that receiver was covered, there was basically nothing he could do. But now, with these weapons, with Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Cedric Wilson, Mike Gesicki, Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, maybe even Sony Michel as well, and even possibly an improved offensive line with Connor Williams and Teron Armstead, this could have him take the next step. Now, Arjun, do you believe with these weapons, with the new offense, can he make this next step or no?
Yeah, I do think he can. I'm personally a little bit lower on Tua than I think most people are. I think when you have to design this type of RPO style offense for a quarterback, it's never a good sign. It kind of speaks to their abilities. But here's the here's the thing about Tua. You don't, if you're a Dolphins fan or you're the Dolphins, you don't need him to be elite. You don't even need him to be top 10. You just need him to be average, because this roster outside of Tua is pretty solid, right? Like the weapons are there. Offense line is a little bit better. The defense still has pretty much every piece from last year, getting Ogba back, and you still have Xavier Howard and Byron Jones. Like you just need him to be a league average quarterback, something he hasn't been in any of his 2 years. And if that happens, then you could see them potentially hitting 9 wins or 10 wins in an AFC where it's pretty stacked, but the Dolphins have the pieces to do it. It's just, again, Tua has not been that type of quarterback, and that's kind of held them back. Like the Dolphins are winning in spite of him, rather than like because of him, if that makes sense.
Tej, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what Arjun said there. I think like something that has to happen for the Dolphins this year is as an organization, they need to figure out a definitive answer about whether Tua is going to be their longtime quarterback or not. And like the pieces are there to figure it out, right? Like between like having like at least like not an awful offensive line this year, having weapons with Gesicki, Waddle, Cedric Wilson, Tyreek Hill, of course. Like the Dolphins organization should be able to come to that answer pretty quickly and either get out of having Tua as their long-term starting quarterback, or know that he is going to be in there for the long term, and then even take the next step the next year to design the offense to be even more acclimated with him. Granted, it would have been good to have the extra first round pick that got taken away by the NFL because of the tampering charges, but that could have really helped to use the extra first round pick to trade up and get one of the top quarterbacks in next year's draft if it doesn't work out. But there are still avenues and paths for the Dolphins to get a new starting quarterback in 2023 if Tua isn't able to perform at an average to above average level this year with the roster upgrades.
Of course. Now, thank you guys so much for coming on. It was a pretty good discussion just based off analytics and film and just play call concepts and what we saw last season from Tua Tagovailoa and comparing the two different types of offenses as well. So, Tej, Arjun, what's it looking like, for the next episode of the Take the Points podcast for y'all?
Yeah, we're actually doing we have two really fun episodes coming up. So the episode that'll come out this Wednesday is kind of doing a betting preview of the 2022 NFL season with some fun guests. Ben Brown from PFF, Judah Fortgang, also from PFF, and then Josiah Clark, who has like a blog on Twitter and everything. And then the episode after that, we're going to do if statements for each team to be a championship contender this year in the NFL. So, I think it'll be a lot of fun stuff. For the Dolphins, I have, if Tua can rank top 12 in EPA per play, if Mike McDaniels is able to run wide zone and play action, with the Dolphins offensive line not being as good as the 49ers. And then, if defenses respect Tyreek Hill enough to play too high against them and like really opening up things for Gesicki and Jalen Waddle. So that's kind of like the if statements that I see. If all three of those things happen, I do see the Dolphins, competing, in the playoffs and everything this year. But it's tough to get, three different things to happen in one season. But as the Bengals showed last year, it is possible.
Arjun, what's it looking like for you, my man?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for those two episodes. So the way that like the if statement episode is going to go is like one person takes half the league and the other person takes the other half. So Tage is on the Dolphins. I mean, we also have our betting preview, and being transparent, I've already bet the Dolphins under wins. Like I took them under.
This man hates the Dolphins. I will tell you this right now.
It's just like, I'll be honest, I'm not going to bet any over win totals for any AFC team just because it's just such a stacked conference.
Look at Paul's comment. I mean, Paul makes a pretty good argument there, Arjun.
I do, but like my thing with the Dolphins is like you're expecting a lot out of a first year head coach, who a completely new offense than what they were running last year, and I think that type of adjustment is going to be tough for the offense. And like they could prove me wrong, right? Like this is a bet I made way back in like April before I left Michigan to go to California, but. Yeah, I mean, I still hold true in that belief. And to my credit, like the Dolphins win total was under 9 at -110, and now it's under 9 at -125. So the markets have been moving towards my bet, signaling that like it's a pretty good bet. So getting some closing line value is always nice to see, and it probably means that other respected people in the betting space agree with me there. So it's not just me.
Of course. Well, Tej, Arjun, thank you guys so much for coming on. Thank you guys for watching along, putting your comments in the episodes as well. Make sure you both follow Arjun and Tej on Twitter. Just type in their name and go ahead and follow. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and make sure you guys subscribe to the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Coming up at 3:20, Alfredo Arteaga and David Fernandez will be detailing the post-practice report coming from today's Dolphins training camp. As always, y'all, fins up, everybody.